The good weather has finally arrived, which means that mountain bike season is just around the corner. Now, I decided this is the perfect time to give you guys some tips on how to improve your jumping so that you can take your riding to the next level and hit the biggest jumps of your life this summer. The first mistake that I see people make when they're learning to jump begins with the setup of your bike. Now, with mountain bikes these days, there's so many different ways to set them up, but for jumping, you definitely want the bike to be stiff, because when you're in the curve of the ramp, the bike compresses a lot, and when it's soft, this makes the bike very unpredictable. For example, soft tyres will make you wobble up the ramp and puts your weight all off balance, and soft suspension saps all of your energy and speed, so you need to go way faster than you would even imagine to get the pop out of the jump. I've found the sweet spot between having grip on a trail and being able to hit jumps, and that is at 27 psi in both tyres. And the suspension, I actually run rock solid. It's not so good for rock gardens and bumps, but this is about jumping, so stiff suspension is the way forward in my opinion. I've also picked my e-bike, and these are so good to learn jumping on because they're heavy, so to move them in the air you have to make quite a big movement with your body, so when you're learning and you make a mistake and your weight is perhaps a bit off, the bike will compensate and save you from having a crash. Now your bike's all set up, it's time to find a suitable jump for learning, like this wooden kicker behind me. I know this looks big and scary, but I'm going to explain to you why this is so much better for learning on than a smaller jump. First of all, the ramp being taller makes it so much smoother, especially for the bigger bike, and a smoother ramp helps because it's going to make it more predictable, meaning that the ramp will do all the work. All you have to do is hit it with the right speed and you should be able to jump. This is a tabletop jump, so there's no gap to clear, and you can go from literally rolling out of the lip onto the deck all the way to progressing onto gapping, getting big air and clearing into the landing. Finally, this landing is very safe. First of all, it's mulch, so if you do crash, you've got nice soft wood chip to catch you. And secondly, you've got so much space, and that's good because if you over clear, there's loads of landing to catch you. And if you crash, this is where you're going to prevent an injury because the landing's so long that the downslope will catch you and break the fall. It's quite a trick of the mind, that, because naturally your brain will tell you that a smaller jump is safer. However, as we just found out, the bigger kicker is actually perfect to learn on. So we've got the bike dialed in for jumping, we've got the perfect setup. It's now time to learn how to jump. First thing we need to look at then is your body position. So we want to adapt something called the attack position. As you're coming down here, if you're pedaling at the jump, make sure that you stop a good distance before the kicker, because this gives you a chance to get into the attack position and get the bike settled. The attack position looks like this then. So it's very neutral. You want to bend your knees and your elbows and be looking ahead. As you get to the ramp, you want to maintain that position and let the bike and the ramp do all of the work for you. Next up then, it's time to go up the ramp. Because this is a tabletop, we can go onto the deck and really feel out the kickers. So we're going to start here, roll in with the attack position, off the brakes, and we're going to focus on the front wheel, just getting a tiny bit of air with that. Completely forget about the back, don't even think about lifting that up for this stage, and just repeat that process until you feel comfortable with the shape of the ramp and the front wheel come in a little bit light, because that is an important step which is coming up. Now you feel comfortable with the ramp, it's now time to focus on a key element, which is speed. Now, this is where a lot of people go wrong, because they will be getting comfortable going to the deck, feeling themselves getting a little bit of air, and then they try to bring the technique in, which physically is impossible unless you go quicker. This is going to feel scary because the ramp's tall, so I'm going to have to go quite fast, but no technique, just more speed, and straight away we nearly cleared the jump. Now, if you go that fast, you might find that you nosedive, and this is where the next tip comes into play. You're now going fast enough to almost clear the jump, and this is where technique now needs to come into play. Now, this step is way more simple than you would imagine. You often see people trying to pull up, lift the front wheel really aggressively, lift front and back wheels. You don't need to do any of that. With this ramp and with the correct speed, all you need to do is unweight the front wheel. Unweighting the front wheel basically means that you're lifting it enough to stop you going into a nosedive. Now, you can practice this on the flat ground. You want to keep a neutral body position, and honestly, at that ramp, I'm probably just doing that. Tiny little compression of the suspension and just lift the front wheel, and that is basically unweighting the bike. If we combine these three elements, attack position, speed and unweighting, it should look something like this. Here we go. Right. Nice. A perfect jump into the landing, which brings us on to the landing now. When it comes to landing then, ideally we're looking to land 2 wheels together. This is quite a nice flat landing, so from takeoff you shouldn't have to adjust the bike in the air too much. But what you're aiming to create from the ramp is that perfect arch. Now, if you're going to land quite heavy, you can push your feet down and pull your weight back slightly, which will make you land on the back wheel, and that helps to absorb a heavy impact, but you're never looking to really land on the front wheel. If this is happening to you, it's because you're not unweighting the front wheel enough, or your weight is too far forward. So look at those two things. Try keep your weight central on the bike, as this will help with a 2-wheeled landing. Now you've got all the components you need to learn to jump. It's just a case of putting them together and practicing. There is a few more advanced techniques that I would like to share with you in this video. So let's head over to the dirt jumps and learn some more. As your jumping skills progress and you start to hit more difficult trails and sets of dirt jumps, you'll notice there's different types of jumps that require different skill sets. Now, luckily behind me, we've got a perfect set of dirt jumps, which I can demonstrate to you how to racer a jump and how to boost. This jump behind me is a race jump known as a long and low. The purpose of this is not to actually give you height and look impressive, but it's to build speed. And the way you do that is by staying low and traveling a long distance. So the technique is slightly different. The easiest way for me to explain this is to think about traveling when you're jumping on your feet. So if I want to jump from here to here, you just jump and you like push forward, as opposed to another jump where you'd like boost but don't make so much distance. If you can try and picture that in your brain, but on the bike, that's the technique that you will adapt when hitting a racer. But obviously it's still important to unweight the front wheel, because if you just push forward, then you're going to go into a nosedive. So like all jumping, it is a balance. This jump right here then, this is a moon booter. Look at how steep that transition is, and it's designed for one thing only, which is to go flat out and pull up to boost as high as you possibly can. Now, this is the technique that everyone wants to learn. When we're over there on the training jumps and you see people trying to pull up, it's because we're all just trying to get as much air time as possible. But it is an advanced technique, so it's important you don't run before you can walk. And I'm going to talk you through how you boost a jump like this. This jump's going to send you high anyway. Even if you just go fast and just unweight the front wheel, it's going to send you to the moon. But to get extra height, you need to adapt the bunny hop technique onto the ramp, where you lift the front wheel first, scoop with your feet, and then push your arms and weight forward to level the bike. Now the ramp is basically going to be lifting the front wheel for you, but for extra height you can pull back even more. The higher you can lift the front wheel out of the ramp, when you then come to level out and create that arch like we was doing over there, you're going to be super high. You can really tuck the bike up and spot your landing, which generally the landings for this are much steeper because you're coming from high. It's a heavy impact, so that's important to remember, because you have to land at some point, whether it's on the bike or on your head. It's so important to remember that if you're going to pull up, pull back to get extra height, then you're going to need to go so much faster, because in popping the ramp and getting height, it uses up energy, which is created by speed. There we have it then. That is all the things that you need to know for jumping right the way through, from hitting your first ramp all the way to boosting huge dirt jumps and pro lines. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up, leave some comments down below, let me know what how-tos you would like to see next, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Yeah. I'm like an addict, do I gotta have it. I ain't even playing, got a really bad habit. If it moves, gotta grab it, fuse like a magnet. Lose, won't have it till I'm doomed in a casket. I ain't playing, got a weird mind. If you work 8 hours, I'ma work 9. If the shit tastes sour, you should taste mine. I'ma stay in power for a long time. Get up, nah, I ain't a